acquiring Eric Johnson, obviously you were, I assume, looking for some depth on D. Is it also somewhat of a reward to the group for putting themselves in the position that they have?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. You know, I mean, we removed a pretty big piece in Sean Walker, and the guys have worked extremely hard to get us to the point that they've gotten us this year. You know, I'm not expecting and asking Eric Johnson to replace Sean Walker. What we're looking for from Eric is to bring his experience, the fact that he's played for a long time, the fact that he's played a lot of playoff games, the fact that he's won a Stanley Cup. Hopefully he can, you know, share a little bit of that with our group, with our young group, especially on defense right now with all the injuries too that we have. It's a pretty young group, so we're hoping that he can, you know, share a little bit of his experience with our team. That's kind of the reason behind the whole time, you know, going into the season. That was part of, you know, bringing a guy like Mark Stahl, who's done a tremendous job with our young guys, and then now in this position now with the injuries, we're even younger. Mark Stahl has been amazing this season for us. Like all this experience that he was able to share, I think he's made guys like Zamula and Cam York even better. So you know, maybe a little bit more of that with Eric Johnson.
With regards to Eric Johnson, he's obviously had a really impressive career. He's definitely on the older side now. I think there was a perception that his game has dipped the last couple of years. Why do you think he can help you guys over this last little bit to try to make this playoff push?
Well, it's mostly his experience, what he can share with our group, maybe bring a little bit of stability, you know, back there, and being comfortable in the moment. You know, when you have guys that have played as many playoff games as he has, you know, it's an asset, and hopefully he can help a group that is on the younger side. You know, that's just the reality. Our guys have played extremely well. We've been impressed with how they've played the last few games. Some really tough games, but at the end of the day, it's still a young team. So that's where a guy like Eric Johnson hopefully might be able to help.
How do you view Gurianov and how he would fit in here?
Gurianov?
Yes.
You know, that came about. I mean, he's interesting. You know, a big 6'3" left winger that can skate like him. The fact that he's had some success in some big games. He's had a pretty interesting playoff run a few years ago. You know, I know it's been a little tougher for him the last couple of years, but you know, again, it's if he catches fire again. We're a little thin on the left side, and he brings us speed and size. So who knows where that goes? And you know, there's a little bit of fact that Wade Allison probably needed a change of scenery for his development. You know, it's been a rough season for Wade, so we wanted to give him the chance, maybe to catch fire on his side, on his end too, and you're kind of kickstart his career again, because it's been tough for him.
So is Gurianov going to start on the NHL roster, or is he going to?
He will. He's coming here. He's going to meet us here. So as far as the roster or for the game tomorrow, that I don't know. That you'll have to ask Torts on that.
How would you characterize the afternoon? Were you fielding calls, or were you making any calls, or how did it shake out?
There was a lot of sharing with our group, looking at all possibilities. Who was out there? You know, how could we improve our team? You know, obviously, you know, we were bargain shopping too a little bit, so we had to be aware of that. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we had 11 picks going into the draft, and we still have 10. So. Just losing one pick and not on the first two rounds, so that was something that we weren't ready to do. So we're excited. I think at the end of the day, it's a good day for us.
Danny, you mentioned yesterday that you were going to try to find Ryan Johansson obviously that didn't happen.
Yep.
Did the offer just not materialize? And what
Yeah.
comes next for him? Does he go to
Yeah.
the AHL? How are you guys going to play this?
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of talks, but there's a select few teams that kind of danced around, but at the end of the day, nobody was willing to make the move. We were willing to retain on him too. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out. So at this time, we're going to ask him to report to Lehigh Valley, and hopefully, we can get it going again. And things change fast in hockey. You never know. So hopefully for him, is he can get it going in Lehigh Valley, and we'll see where that goes. I really don't know what the next step after this will be for him.
Have you talked, did you get a message at all to Scott Lawton leading up to the deadline that he wasn't going anywhere? Because obviously his name was out there. He
Yeah.
talked about it openly.
Yeah.
Did you maybe call him at some point, and was he relieved?
Yes, and I was honest with Scott from the beginning, just like I've been with you guys. My job as a general manager is to listen to what's out there, and I told him that. And Scott and I have a special relationship because we've played together. When you've played with someone, there's a bond that forms there. It's just the way it is. We've said it from the get-go. We're trying to be as honest as we can with our players, especially with Scott and that bond that we have. So I was upfront with him. I told him that I probably I wasn't shopping him, first of all. I wasn't going to trade him for fair value because he's more than fair value to us. The intangibles that he brings in the locker room is something that has no price, and the other teams don't see that, but we do. And I told him that. I said, we're not going to trade you if it's just a fair trade. Someone would have to overstep and really knock it out of the ballpark for us to consider it. And, yes, I did listen. I had a lot of teams interested in him. As you can imagine, there's not a lot of centermen, and he's a good one. So the good thing for him, as I said, the teams around the NHL still value you. So I think that's exciting for him, but not good enough for us to let a player like that go. That is critical to the development of our locker room, and our young guys around him.
Can you talk about that a little bit more, as far as from that perspective, that you say teams from around the league don't know what you know? Maybe that way you can present it for the public as well. Like,
Yeah.
What don't they understand? What don't people understand that you need
Yeah.
more than fair value to move a player like that?
Yeah, well, if you look at I think some of the quotes that came out from some of the players, our coaches' quotes, that tells you a lot of what people think. And I'm aware of that. I talk to the players. I've had people come to me and say, we need them for this stretch. And obviously, it's teammates supporting teammates, which is great. But we started when we hired Torts. We started kind of changing the culture a little bit. And without Sean Couturier around the dressing room last year, Scott was probably the guy that stepped up the most and started working on that culture change. And then this year, coming into the season, again, he was one of the leaders. He's still one of the leaders in that department. It's the way he treats and his teammates, his coaches, the way we have a term in French that I can't seem to get. It's like he brings people together.
What's the term in French?
Rassembleur. So so he's someone that brings people together, and it would have been scary to let a guy go like that, especially in the situation that we're in, that we're trying to make the playoffs.
Danny, going into this deadline, I think you guys have obviously said that you're rebuilding, but I think a lot of people were looking at this deadline as a way to figure out exactly what that meant, what your definition of a rebuild was and how you guys were going to execute it. Is it fair to say that the avenue you guys are taking is a rebuild but with a very strong emphasis upon the culture aspect and trying to always balance those two things?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. The culture is we felt the first thing that needed to change around here. I didn't like how our team was playing the last few years. We were a team that was easy to play against. And for me, and I've said that before, I think the first step in that change was John Tortorella. Brought an identity to our team, forced our players to play a certain way that makes it tough to face. He's a really, you look at our team, we're really in-your-face type of team. We try to take time and space away from the other team, and that makes it really tough. Just talking to different players around the league and executive, everybody, that's the one thing that keeps coming up is how hard we are to face. And it's not just, when I say that, people assume right away it's just the physicality side of it, but it's more than that. It's the time and space that the players are allowed or given on the other side that makes it tough. They don't have time or a lot of time to make plays. It's always tough. So that was probably the first step. Now, I have to give our coaches and our players a lot of credit for the way they've played. I've said it many times. We didn't expect to be where we are at this stage of the season. We hope to play meaningful games, but to be inside that playoff bubble, third in our division, that's probably above what we expected. So, that's even more exciting. So that's, it's all coming together, but it doesn't change at the end of the day what we're trying to do and having an outlook towards the future, making sure that it's sustainable for years to come and not just 1 year.
But is it fair to say that, while you guys are certainly accumulating assets, you traded Sean Walker for a first-round pick, that your vision of this being sustainable requires the culture to be strong as well? That
was the first step for us to have success down the road, to develop players the right way. You can acquire all the assets that you want, but if you don't, and you can look at other teams, they do that, they acquire assets, but it's tough when you don't have the right culture to develop those guys. That's another reason why player development was also an important part of our readjustment that we made this summer. That all comes together, and then who knows what's going to happen. I don't want to talk about next year, but who knows what next year, that'll be a different story. But it's not just about this year or next year. It's about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road too, that we make sure we get better and better and become Stanley Cup contenders.
Just one or two more. Do you feel like you've hit all the boxes on your checklist for the trade deadline?
I don't know. I didn't have a checklist per se. It's more about adjusting along the way, and because things change. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on all day. You're getting different calls, different players. It changes from 1 minute to the next. The one thing that we had going in today, we wanted to provide a little bit of depth and experience on defense after having lost Sean Walker. So that was the major one without spending high-end asset. So that was done. The Gurianov is a nice little ad that we had to adjust along the way that we were excited about.
What was it like for you going through this process for the first time as a GM?
It was interesting. Learned a lot. Probably the thing that I'm most proud of is how we all work together. In that room we had Jonesy, Dan Hilferty stopped by. It was fun to have him around and see how everything was working. Our management, the assistant GMs were all there. The analytics guys were involved with what they were doing. Our pro scouts with what they had seen. What I'm most proud of is how we all worked together, and everybody had a say and everybody had an opinion, and that's probably the best part about how it worked today. But for me personally, it's my first one. I don't know if it's normal or not, but I had a fun day.
You guys just in like a big suite here or something, and all sitting around?
At a little conference room. Yeah. So.
Last one, going back real quick, you talked a little bit earlier about Wade Allison, about that he might benefit from a change of scenery. I'm curious as to like why you think it got to the point where he needed a change of scenery. I know he's popular in that room, he was popular with the fans, he spent
Yep.
a lot of time with the team last year.
Yeah.
Why do you think it got to the point where he needed a change of scenery?
Yeah, it's a good question. He came in, we had him penciled into our roster at the beginning of the season, going into the training camp. And, I still remember my first speech to the players was, don't take anything for granted. That this is not charity. You have to keep pushing the envelope. And, I think his camp was just okay. And then all of a sudden, Forster and Brink, who we didn't have penciled in, came out of nowhere, and not really out of nowhere because we had high hopes down the road for them, but showed that they were more prepared right away than we expected. And they took his spot. And I don't know, it's like he just couldn't get out of it after, couldn't recover. And those two guys, Tyson just kept playing better and better all year. We can't take him out of our lineup anymore. Bobby's case, he was excellent early on, and then started getting scratched. We didn't want him to sit around. Went back, kind of got his confidence back, and when he came back, he was really good again. Gave us a jolt early on. So for some reason, Wade wasn't able to get the traction back, and we felt at this point it was for his own development, it might be better to have a try somewhere else and snap it out. So, we like Wade. It's nothing personal, and actually we hope that it works out better for him.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
You don't have any sort of update on the injured defenseman, do you? Drysdale, Bristow?
No, I don't. And they're back in Philly, just like Sealer, so I don't even have anything on Sealer. I know what we have here, and Eric Johnson is on his way. That's all I know.
Yeah.